Well, hello, friends and listeners, and I'm hoping in the Venn diagram of friends and listeners there's huge overlap because we feel now, after 77 episodes, you are our friends. It is the Media Beat with Maureen and Claire, and in another packed episode. How are we going to squeeze it all in? But somehow we managed to. We've got quite a lot to get through, and we have one of our world famous deep dives to kick us off. It's a Claire deep dive. It's a Claire deep dive this time. And there's been a lot in the news about the Online Safety Act and how it's now actually being enacted and it's affecting the way that people are using the internet. So we thought it was a perfect time to review a little bit and find out a little bit about what the Online Safety Act is, what its powers are, the history, how it came to be, how it's going to affect people, and who better than Claire to take us through that. Claire, over to you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Well, if you're in the UK, you will have heard about the Online Safety Act. In fact, you probably will have heard about it for years and years and years because we've been talking about it for a very long time. It really started in 2017 with the Digital Economy Act, and then in 2019 there was an online harms white paper. We've had some really big academics like Professor Lorna Woods come out and talk about duty of care, and this is very much focused on protecting children from mostly children, certainly now in this current incarnation, from the harm that can come to them through the internet. Uh, there were I'm going to focus on where the act, because it's an act now, not a bill, is now. But I just want to talk you through why it's taken quite so long to get to where we are. It was introduced in the House of Commons in March 2022. It passed through 16 committee sittings from April to June 2023. It got 400 total amendments in Parliament, which is maybe not the most, but up there with some of the most debated bills and acts. And it changed quite significantly from its beginning, which makes it interesting because although it's not quite a bipartisan act, it started with a Conservative government. It got finally passed into law with and is now being implemented with a Labour government. And really, it's had input from people from all parties, and is very much a piece of legislation, I think, that represents the entire legislature of the UK. What it is an attempt to provide some security features to avoid children being exposed to online harm. Now, there's some stats there that Ofcom has published that are quite sobering. About 500,000 children aged 8 to 14 in the UK have encountered pornography online in a single month. That's 19% of boys and 11% of girls aged 13 to 14 which access pornographic sites. And then even more sobering, 3% of children aged 8 to 9 have encountered pornographic content online while they were on there. The average age of first exposure to online pornography is 13. And nearly 80% of minors have seen violent or degrading content before 18. So this is the duty of care that underpins the act, and the reason why it's been enacted in the way that it has. It now what it does and why we're talking about it now is that it forces websites, including websites with adult content, primarily websites with adult content, to have robust age verification mechanisms, not just the things that you've probably all seen on websites that say, please enter your date of birth. Oh, that's okay, you're over 18, you can go on. Something a bit more robust, which involves securing ID and finding out whether you are actually over 18. Ofcom, the regulator in the UK, is responsible for the enforcement. It's the sole regulator for the enforcement, and it has powers to issue fines up to £18 million or 10% of global turnover. And it can also block sites if they think it needs to. By now, by July 2025, it had already issued more than 50 pieces of statutory guidance, open enforcement case against at least 4 major platforms for failing to comply. And it is currently working on codes of practice for parliamentary approval. It's a very, very complex procedure. And I'm now going to talk about why people are talking about it, because there are a lot of people who think it's a great idea. In fact, 80% of UK adults think this law is a really great idea, which is interesting. The people who don't think it's a great idea fall into sort of two categories. The first one is people who say it's a violation of free speech. I have to say I have not a huge amount of sympathy for that, but I suspect some of the wording in the first iterations of the law were probably slightly more coercive in terms of content than they are now. But the second large bit of criticism is that it's unenforceable, that it's so easy to get around, that people will just download VPNs and access content from other ways, that it's so wide ranging and so broad that it makes it impossible to attempt to implement proactively, that it's too far reaching, that the UK shouldn't have been leading in this. This is something that people say. They should have waited for other people to do it and then looked at how they did it and tried to improve it rather than be the first ones out of the gate, which we are. The UK is the first of the OECD country with such a wide-ranging act around online safety. There's a lot of issues around the fact that the day that the first age verification appeared on porn sites, the number one app that was downloaded on the App Store was a VPN. So it's obvious that some people will find ways around it. The thing, I think personally, my view on this is, yes, there are always ways around this. This is like piracy. All you can do is provide some deterrent. It is true that there are questions around the ability of Ofcom to provide such a wide-ranging role. That's not what they've done in the past. They're not necessarily, I mean, they've been preparing for it for many years now, but it doesn't mean they're ready. And it's going to be a very difficult thing for them to implement. It is very complex, the legislation, and it has many, many different tentacles in lots of different ways. It is one country going against, as we know, global tech giants. But I do think it's a very important first step towards regulating some aspects of the internet. Indeed, both the US and the European Union are looking at that law or that act as a template on which to build similar or equivalent legislations. And I also think it's interesting as the new generation of content comes up, which is Gen AI, which I know Maureen will talk about slightly later in the program, that we're just about getting to grips with what it might mean to regulate the previous phase. So we're a cycle off, but there is an attempt, and I do think we need regulation. So I am aligning myself with the 80% of UK adults who think it's a good thing. I do recognize that it's going to be a really, really tricky one to implement. And that's it. Does that give you enough, Oliver? Do you know more?
No, I definitely don't know more, and I know a lot more than I did before. Maureen, have you any comments?
Yeah, and Claire, I think that's a really lovely summary actually, because I think we've been waiting for it to go from bill to act, and I was staggered as you educated us that there were 400 amendments to it, because I think the seriousness of this. So it's really interesting, and one thing I'm sort of focused on is how UK has adopted this sort of safety first. And if you just look globally, how fragmented it is. So you've got Asia, Singapore and South Korea, for example, their priority is more about misinformation and national security, user well-being. Not so sure. The US, I think, is still, they're talking about it. There's a lot of political noise, but nothing's really happening. I think Canada is, I think, leaning a little bit more towards the UK, but not taking as, I think, an assertive action as the UK is doing. And I think it's going through much more sort of consultative sort of stakeholder driven model. But what I'm interested in is what's the impact? And you're absolutely right to point out, I think only last week we saw the Guardian front page talking about how Gen Zers have now got their own VPNs. we wonder why. The timing's interesting, but it's what the
But you
impact.
see, I think if it was Gen Z, it's fine, as long as Gen Alpha, which by the way come later,
Good point.
don't have it.
Yeah, no, good point. Good point. I think the onus is going to be on businesses. It's going to be on the tech players, and I think they have to build in an infrastructure which is greater moderation. More, which flies in the face of what Zuckerberg did, which basically said, "Don't need moderation. Let's just leave it out there for free, and do what you will, and let's not interfere." So I'm a little concerned about that, but it's just going to be for adults extra layer of security in terms of logging in and verification. That's not a bad thing. I do believe we may see some platform shifts saying, "Oh, we're going to leave the UK, we'll move elsewhere." I don't think it'll happen. I think they're just threats, and I think what they do is they just hire a few people, get the moderation right, get the verification right, and I think be fine. But yeah, I'm staggered by how fragmented the regulatory environment is globally, from Japan, Asia, to the US and Canada. I think it's good on us, UK, for taking that first step. It's just staggering. It's taken 2 years to get into ACT.
Yeah. I agree, and I think putting children's safety first is absolutely the right way to look at it. I do think it's a signal, another nail in the coffin of the idea that the internet was going to self-regulate, which, remember, was the dream, we don't need regulation, it's going to self-regulate. Well, it hasn't, and this is yet another example of why it will not, and it does need some boundaries and some rail guards, which this, I think, provides. It's not perfect. It definitely isn't perfect. It was never going to be perfect because it was the first one. Somebody had to go first, and it will get better.
And I don't know if you have, but I haven't seen any numbers yet, in terms of, this will have this X number of euros impact on businesses, or this will. And I wonder if that's not happened because no one really knows what's going to happen yet, and no one's really thought about it. And I think although it's been 2 years in the making, it's kind of just feels as if it's just dropped on everyone and go, "Oh yeah, oops, online safety. Oh, we better do something about it." And I'm not quite sure if businesses have prepared themselves for that, because it will take extra security. It will mean that you have to moderate. It will mean you have to put guardrails up, and they don't happen instantly. People will have to do that, and companies will have to do that, and they have to be concerned about that,
So 6,000, according to Ofcom, 6,000 sites with explicit content have agreed to implement their guidelines. So they have done a lot of work behind closed doors in terms of aligning the industry, and getting there. It doesn't mean it will be quite that easy, but it reminds me of when GDPR came into force.
Exactly, I was going to say that.
Everybody went, "Oh my God, this will be terrible!" And for a while, you couldn't access any of the American newspapers, and then they found a way, surprisingly.
But there was a cost to business for implementing GDPR, and I think that's what it is. And I think a lot of hey, all you consultants out there should be figuring out, how to help these businesses, to support them, to put it in place very, very quickly. Otherwise, these fines are quite big.
Yeah, they're pretty big.
I mean, they're pretty big, as they were with GDPR. So yeah.
Can I use this moment
as a
to
plug?
tell you my experience with an explicit website? When I was, years ago in my career, I was in charge of securing domain names for a number of shows, including The X Factor, which obviously you've all heard about. And there was already a website called The X Factor. As you can imagine, it was, well, as you may consider, it was a porn site. And so I emailed them and I said, I think somebody else emailed them, but it went up to me. I said, we'd like to buy your domain name. And he said, not at all. It was one guy in America. I said, no, I'm keeping it. I like it. I said, okay, all right. Well, will you please put a big, on your homepage, a big sign saying, if you're looking for the TV show, please click here to be taken over to the TV show website so people don't get into your site by accident. And he said, oh yes, I'll definitely do that if you do the same with mine.
And what did General Counsel say about that?
The General Counsel was not pleased with that outcome. I think we ended up buying him out for quite some money.
I was about to say, so I either buy it. It was a good negotiating leverage on his part, or if you send them we'll give you
But he
X
he
number.
had prior use, so we could,
Yeah,
yeah, he
exactly.
was in his right. Absolutely, no, he ended up making quite a lot of money. I say he. I assumed he was a man. He might have been a woman,
Very.
for all
That's
I
the kind of
know. There
prejudice we
you
have to live
go.
with every day as a white,
Yes, yes.
middle-aged, middle-class man. It's just awful how we've
All
dealt
right,
with
that was my
that.
story.
I'll tell you what, though, Claire, I'm going to be very careful in the edit today because you did say I have a little anecdote about my first experience in the porn industry. So I'm going to be very, very careful the way I cut
Did I
that.
say that? All
You did,
right.
you did, you did.
That's going
Certainly
In
to
got
be.
my
rather than
attention.
with. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
it got my attention.
Exactly.
But
You might have that,
on the
Oliver. I'll try. I have full trust in you. You're
no,
a
no,
good
don't
team.
worry, don't worry. I'll yeah, we might have some interesting articles on
Just
on
bleep
LinkedIn.
me.
Well, that's even worse.
Yeah.
You just give them the aren't the arguments against it so lame? It's like, oh no, we can't do it because it's not foolproof. It's like, let's not have a police service because they'll still be criminals. It's a kind of insane. And also to get a VPN. When did an 8-year-old get a VPN? I mean, it's come
Well,
on.
that's the
This is
thing.
better than it was
Let's
before.
start with protecting the 8-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly, and move
Good
from there.
point.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you as usual. An excellent deep dive again, and an eye opener, and an excellent a rebuffal from Maureen. I don't think it was a rebuffal, but anyway, you added to it enormously. And I'm kicking myself for not saying this is a story that's run and run, and it's finally run its course. And I forgot to say that in the intro, so I'll say that now. That was absolutely teed up for me perfectly, but never mind. So that was it. That was a deep dive Online Safety Act. We might revisit at some point when some numbers come in about how effective it is, but I think it's a wonderful thing, of course. So that takes us quite neatly to a very uncensored version where anybody from the age of 0 to 117 can listen to In the News. And another opportunity arises for me to say a story that's run and run. And of course, it's the Paramount acquisition deal, which has finally closed. Maureen's going to take us through the death throes of that and some of the implications of that. So, Maureen, Paramount, finally.
Well, it's official. It's official. After years of boardroom drama, of listening to Claire and me go on and on and on about whether or not this is going to happen or not happen, and of course, and I should mention South Park's drama as well, on the eve of the FCC, which is the federal sort of commission, giving the yay to the deal happening. So yeah, it's happened. It's interesting. It's quite a significant deal in the world of TV and telly. So Skydance, as we know, is owned by Larry Ellison's son, David Ellison, business. And so they've basically been able to inject a bit of capital to the tune of $8 billion. And alongside Redbird, and we all know about Redbird. Redbird is the Middle East set of investors that effectively has come in as well to support David. And Ellison is not a dilettante. He's kind of like, he's been in the business for some time. He has got this sort of badge of honor for Tom Cruise's Top Gun Maverick. But everyone in the industry, because they all have mixed views on this deal now happening. Now it's happened. Everyone now comes out and says, "Oh, let's comment on it." And David Ellison is, for want of a better word, a billionaire's son, and he walks around like
A nepo baby.
a nepo baby, and he walks around like a billionaire's son. But that said, one needs to give him credit, and perhaps a bit more credit to the fact that he has taken this business Paramount out of Sherry Redstone. Sherry Redstone, of course, was the parent company owner of Paramount. And the reason I mentioned the number 8 billion is because 8 billion is what is now seen to be worth Skydance and Paramount jointly. And we all may recall that Sherry Redstone and her dad put together Paramount through sort of acquisitions of CBS and Viacom. That, take note, both of those businesses in their heyday were worth 20 billion apiece. So total value, and I correct myself now, so David Ellison has put in 8 billion. of fresh capital and assets. The now combined business should be worth 28 billion. But as I said, Paramount back in its heyday were, threefold, fourfold of that. So David Ellison's come in and he's now going to steady the ship. He's now going to do something great, apparently, with this business. And he's brought in some serious heavy hitters. So you've got Jeff Shell coming back, and you've also got Cindy Holland coming back. So he really does want to, bring back the best of that is telly. Let's see. Meanwhile, though, everyone was on their, let's say, edge of their sofas when two things happened. On the eve, as I say, on the eve of this being given a thumbs up, South Park founders, of course, as we know, fantastic franchise, South Park founders also were going to be given a big, big, big check for their franchise as part of this big deal. So you'd think they'd be very, very happy about it. But they did a real whammy of a funny thing that they did. They decided to air. Now, this particular episode was pre-seen by Sherry. It wasn't pre-seen, it was pre-read by Sherry Redstone and all of the executives going up the chain for Trump as a Satan. Trump as a Satan in the desert, with a little bit of Sermon on the Mount going on in the background. Now, I don't know if maybe go and watch it yourself. I don't know, Claire, if you've seen it or not. It's absolutely hilarious, and everyone just freaked out, thinking perhaps the reason that this deal was held up in the first place could well be for political reasons, and could well have been that the president was really upset that CBS, through 60 Minutes, did not do him justice and instead did Kamala Harris justice. And so there's a big ongoing sort of lawsuit in the background. So the fact that Matt Stone and Trey Parker did this whammy of a send up, Trump as Satan, was a bit risque on the eve of this being approved. But nonetheless, it was approved, and was the show was approved too. So fantastic. So a lot of drama around this deal. 3 is in the making, but it doesn't stop there. Sorry, I'm really extending the story here. It doesn't stop there. We all know that my favorite, Stephen Colbert, his show that's sitting on CBS, was also canned last week. I mean, it will run through to next year, but can nonetheless. And we all know that Stephen Colbert did not see eye to eye with Trump, and one wonders about the timing of his show being cancelled. But if you put all this together, I think it does actually say a lot about bending the knee. Does say a lot about what does this actually mean about trying to get shows done. What does it mean about commenting politically as a satirist, either through animation or through late night shows? Who knows? Anyway, I'll stop there because I'll get highly, highly, highly political, and I'll just simply say, well done. The deal was done. It got over the line, and I hope that the staff now at Paramount and Skydance can just sort of sit there and say, phew, let's now see what happens 2025 and 2026. But anyway, Claire, I don't know what you thought, but I thought that was a superb kind of, great, we got it out there over the line, and you and I can stop talking about it. Perhaps.
I'm just waiting for the TV show. I feel can we spare a moment for the 3 co-CEOs? Do you remember? Nobody will remember this. We did talk about it. But, when Bob Bakish was ousted of Paramount, this is a year ago, they decided to replace this middle-aged white man by 3 middle-aged white men. And unfortunately, 2 of them have now lost a job or will be departing. One of them has already announced that he was departing. The one other is very likely to be, and one might stay in his job. So bad news. Bad ratio for them. But as you said, they did bring some new people in. Now the Colbert cancellation is an interesting one because it's also true that late night shows have not been doing great ratings wise, and that there is a sense perhaps that this is possibly the end of an era. They dominated ratings, or not dominated ratings, but they did very well for a lot of people for many years. But there's quite a lot of them. They all sort of look alike, and they've not done as well in the ratings recently as they have. And Stephen Colbert had been doing these shows for 33 years, or that show had been going on for 33 years, not with him only. So maybe it just was time. I agree that the timing was quite specific, but it's also possible that it had run its course.
And I think, and I give you a lot of credit for saying that, because I get so emotional about these satirists, and Stephen Colbert is one of my favourites, as is Seth Meyers, and there were 5 of them. There are now 4, possibly 3, and as Trump said on Truth Social, all right, we got rid of Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel's next, so let's just see. But Jimmy Kimmel, of course, is protected by Disney. Let's just see whether or not the economics are actually, his show is quite profitable. So maybe it is about consolidation, and when we do sort of move into just one late night show, will exist. But you're absolutely right. I think the economics are not very strong for Stephen Colbert, and I think it's just interesting timing, And I think maybe the executives was probably saying, well, if we hand you as a sacrificial lamb as part of the deal, maybe this will get over the regulatory line as well. But who knows? Yeah.
Interesting. Well, keep an eye on that. They can't cancel us. That is the beauty of the freedom of the podosphere. And let's hope they don't. Let's move on.
They could.
I suppose they could. Really. Yeah, they could just, yeah. Oh, gosh. Sorry if you're listening, Mr. Trump. I'm ever so sorry. Now, let's move on. Yes, Claire, you have a story about the LA Times and Trump and Murdoch, and maybe even the new future of news. What's going on there?
Yes. Well, I'm going to start with the LA Times. So the LA Times is just announced its owner, which is a billionaire called Dr. Patrick Su-Xiong, has announced that it was going to take it public. Not so much in the sense of an IPO, but in a sort of, fan acquired or a way that mostly football teams or sports teams get acquired. So everybody can own a piece of this rather than a formal IPO on the stock market. It's an interesting decision. He justifies it by saying that he wants to engage the community, that he wants to restore public trust in media. Those are all very good things to talk about. The problem is the LA Times, along with many, many newspapers, is losing a lot of money. So it's difficult to take something public, even in this sort of fan-based way that is hemorrhaging cash, which is the case here. So, and there's still a lot of questions about the structure of it and how it will work. But the announcement of this, which you found, Maureen, made me have a look at press in general. In parallel, we also know that there's an ongoing lawsuit between Trump and the Wall Street Journal, owned by Murdoch, due to some of the articles that they've published around the Epstein files. I'm not going to get into this, only to say that it's never a great sign when people in power start suing the media. It's sort of, absolutely they should do it if there's libel, but otherwise it does bring some concerns around freedom of press. But all of these news around newspapers made me think, what's going on with the profitability of newspapers these days? And the answer is still not great. There are a few bright lights. The New York Times is incredibly profitable. It's interestingly not mostly, but in great part because of its games subscription, games and recipes. And we've just discovered that we're all on the New York Times games. Please come and join us. I do all the crosswords, but mostly we try to get the mini in under a minute. I've done it in 17 seconds, one day. This is still my biggest claim to fame. But the Times is profitable as well. The Guardian is not profitable, but it's losing less money than it used to. It's also got it's got a big endowment, so it's got money and it can afford to. But beyond that, there aren't that many bright lights in the press, and that there've been major layoffs in all of them. There are ongoing legal disputes. We've talked about Donald Trump, and most of them have not managed to entirely recover from the shift from paper to online, and deciding whether they go for a premium model, a freemium model, etc. You can see that going on and on and on. Regional press is really, really struggling. We've seen it recently with this isn't regional press, but with the sale of the Telegraph in the UK, how hard that was. We are still on very, very shaky grounds for most newspapers. And so I think it's an interesting strategy that the LA Times is taking to try and come up with new sources of funding. And it's not so different from The Guardian, who's constantly asking for donations, but it's one that they take because they haven't found anything else. So that's my view on the press.
And I think you're right. I think they need to diversification strategy is critical for all of these, and I think we saw that with the magazines industry, particularly the Radio Times in the UK, a lot of the Condé Nast magazines, and indeed Future PLC really did move from just magazines to an e-commerce model. So if you loved bicycles, you became a community, and then in the end, it was an e-commerce platform that you were buying and selling bicycles. And I wonder, as you've rightly pointed out, Claire, that these newspapers are moving away from their core business to what keeps people on their sites, what's engaging. Well, newspapers always had crosswords, and of course with the New York Times buying Wordle and then just opening up their gaming environment, it keeps us there on the site. And by the way, you flip between the articles, and then you go, let's go and do the crossword, or let's go and do spelling bee or whatnot. It keeps you engaged, and I think the strategy there is keep as many people engaged as possible, and then you get either subscription revenues or you get the advertising. And if you can keep that data, first party data about who's watching, who's looking, and who's engaging, you can sell that inventory to advertisers. And I think it's compelling. So I think I think it's going to be interesting to see. But I think gamification, games, diversification is paramount, and we're not going to get into the knee bending of what's going on with the Wall Street Journal and that close proximity of Rupert Murdoch and Trump. So we'll skip over that.
Well,
But
not so close
I point they're not so close, albeit I did hear rumours that maybe there's some settlement going on. But I think there is something about the broader point here about freedom of speech, which you picked up on. But it cannot only apply to comedians and protesters or social media accounts. It's got to apply to the newsroom as well. And I truly believe the impartiality and allowing newsrooms to say what they want, make politicians accountable and businesses accountable. But I'll get off my soapbox.
But not pornographers. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love a mini crossword, and we're all going to be on the leaderboard together, aren't we? On the mini crossword, we've all decided we're all going to meet in cyberspace, and I'm going to come third because.
Well, I can't beat 17 seconds. That's for sure. I mean, 17 seconds.
I know. I should have taken a screenshot of it. Actually, I didn't. Oh well.
And the clues.
We believe you. We believe you. Yeah.
Who scored the most runs in the most home runs in the 1952? Whatever you call it. It's a bit American based. Is the point I'm trying to make. So let's move on. Yes. So Maureen, let's stay with you. The title of this is AI content blurred lines. Is it AI? Is it not AI? If it's AI, is it AI with malice, or is it AI with no malice? What's the story? What's the angle? What's the scoop?
So what's the scoop? So Claire and I virtually, without any AI agentic systems or support, we uncovered a couple of really interesting stories, which I think will lay claim to good faith or good actors and bad actors in AI. And as we all know, I love AI and agentic AI and generative AI, and Claire keeps me in check. So hence the reason for making sure it's balanced rather than too enthusiastic on my part. So anyway, this week we got 3 different very telling stories, which really does show more the collision of sort of AI and media. So I'll start off with the more positive note, which is Netflix, and we'll then move on to Bollywood and Spotify. But I think each kind of highlights a sort of a crack in authorship, ethics, and probably control. And that's something that Claire and I are always banging on about. So Netflix. In their recent earnings call, Ted Sarandis started to sort of hint at and talk about, in a very positive light, use of generative AI and how it's being used as a creative tool rather than an efficiency stick for his people and for the systems and workflows and whatnot. So it's really fascinating for us to uncover that a critical scene in one of their major shows, their show, and forgive my pronunciation, El Eternauta, and Claire will correct me, I think, which is an Argentinian sci-fi epic. And one of the critical scenes in that show, in this drama, was a building in Buenos Aires just collapsing. And the team at Netflix, with the production team and a post-production team, now declare and own up the fact that they've used generative AI tools. Now, we don't know whether it's Runway or Runway and a sort of a medley of tools that the internal teams have been using, but nonetheless, they were able to create this scene 10 times faster than traditional tools, which is incredible. And Ted Sarandis made sure that he put that out there. But effectively saying, doing this creatively, we would not have been able to creatively do this, but we also able to do it 10 times faster. So it's kind of like a one-off. It's not a one-off experiment. This is something I think is now embedded in the workflows of most studios. Most production companies are seriously thinking about how they can use generative AI tools. That, in my books, is a kind of a good faith use of generative AI. Nothing untoward going on there, just simply saying we will be using this more and more, and in some of our high-end dramas as well, and big shows. Great. All right, let's move from the US to India, and a company that I think people may or may not be familiar with, but Eros Media Group is re-releasing one of a really significant shows, a romantic drama called Ran Jahana. Now, again, Claire will correct me for the pronunciation of this.
Not that one. El Eternauta. I can say in Spanish, but
Okay.
not not in Hindi.
Not in India. So in 2013, which the original film ends in a tragedy. Okay, but the new version, created using AI, is now going to have a happy ending. And the director, again, someone I can't pronounce, but I will try, Anand El Rai, found out through the press, not from the owners, Eros Media, of the rights that they hold for this particular drama, this particular film, a particular romantic drama, that he now reckons that this move is reckless, dystopian, in his words, and says it disregards both intent and authorship. So this has got nothing to do with the story. It is absolutely inappropriate in his view, and maybe even the audience's view when they get to see it. But Eros owns the rights, and it defends this as a marketing experiment, and says that one of many that it may do to the 3,000 titles sitting in its catalogue. So it's that, for us, and Claire will probably attest to this, is slightly bad faith in our books. But let's make it clear here, this is not a remake. They're actually taking the show and changing the ending. So for all those folks who will see it for the first time, they'll see that as being a happy ending, and that's not the intent of the author and the original IP owner. So anyway, so that's one, and then Spotify also is slap wrist for them too. But this week it emerged that the AI generated tracks were posted on an official artist's pages of deceased, that's the operative word, deceased musicians, including Blaze Foley and Guy Clark. The songs created by the group also, as we've been following, Syntax Error, mimic their vocal and their songwriting styles. The rights holders were not contacted, and this is something that Claire and I have been banging the drum and beating the drum, I should say, that consent and ethics and authorship are really, appropriate, and they all stand and should stand up to be, better use and good use of generative AI. But that's my one good faith, two bad actors situation. But as we all know, we've been following this AI native act like Velvet Sundown as well, which has about over 1 million listeners. It continues to grow but they don't exist. But I think it's sort of open now that they may not exist. But anyway, it's a test case. So Claire, over to you. But I think this is pretty interesting examples of where they're good actors and bad actors with respect to generative AI.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good. They're all great examples of people testing the boundaries, which is normal, and checking what's acceptable and what's not. And this is what you do when the legal framework is not adapted to the issue, which I think it's not at the moment. I mean, we all know it's not. So I think I agree with your assessment that doing it in secret is not good. What they did with the Indian film sounds very annoying. If I was the director, I'd be pretty pissed off. But they, as you say, they own the IP, and so I think what we are going to see is a lot more of these things, of people testing things and trying to figure out what's feasible, what's not, what people will accept, what they want. I'm very curious. I may actually try to look up that Indian film and watch the ending, because I'd be curious to see how well it's rendered as an AI. Whether they just change the words, I don't know. It'll be really interesting, like from a technical point of view. But yes, I agree, and that there are good ways and bad ways to do it. And I think the only way to find out where that line is to keep testing, which we'll see lots more of.
I look forward to the end of Titanic where the lady drowns.
Titanic 2, The Return.
Yeah,
The Return of the Door.
It plops off the door. Who's going to get the door this time? So that was, interesting. Thank you very much. We have to move on because time is ticking away. So I will close this part of the podcast, and that was in the news. Okay, you know, and I know, it's Podmoji time. What on earth do you guys have to hand to make better, or even your, or give life to your Podmojis? We're going to start off with probably one of the most popular memes that are around at this moment. We'd be fools to ignore it. It's the older astronomer versus Coldplay thing. So you would have to have been living not only under a rock on Mars, but probably in some distant cold planet in a different solar system not to have come across this story. So the poor couple who had their private life hideously invaded at a Coldplay concert and therefore were exposed, potentially, allegedly, of perhaps having more than a friendship at the board level of astronomer. That's the story, which you might have heard of. But what's the Podmoji, Claire?
So the full story, the story that amused me. So yes, we've all seen the couple, the Coldplay, the video, the ducking, the all like ridiculous. Has been redone over and over again by lots and lots of people. But what I loved was what Astronomer, the company, I mean, the two people left or were fired or whatever. Astronomer, the company, then went out and hired Gwyneth Paltrow to do a video, which is actually quite brilliant, where she basically comes in and says, I've been hired as the spokesperson of Astronomer, and I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about our products, because I know that's why you've been Googling our name so much. And this is anyway, it's a short video. I urge you to go out and watch it. Gwyneth Paltrow, of course, was married to the singer of Coldplay for many, many years. I think it's not just me. It's been hailed as really, really brilliant crisis management by Astronomer. And I think, so my Podmoji here is, a tip of the hat, because it's not easy to, find a way to turn that situation into positive publicity. And they did. And that video with Gwyneth has been seen 27 million times by now, which is not quite as many times as people have watched a couple duck behind the rail guard, but it's the guardrail, but it's quite high. So well done to them. Well done to Gwyneth Paltrow for playing along, although I'm sure she was handsomely paid for it. And it just goes to show you have to be creative in moments of crisis. And I really liked it.
Yeah, no.
I have a Podmoji. I gave you the Podmoji.
Oh, yes, that's right. No, I saw it. I saw it. Yes, that was noted. Very good one. There's 7.5 points for that, actually. It's very good.
So.
Oh, it's also, whatever they did, they couldn't have made it any worse, I suppose. But that was genius.
You never know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point. Maureen, yes, your Podmoji featuring sunglasses, perhaps.
So yeah, I will tip my hat to the PR company. that arranged that. I thought that was absolutely gold. Brilliant, brilliant. But I guess what belies this though is a classic, because Astronomer is owned by a big private equity firm, and I just think it's hilarious. I shouldn't say hilarious. I think that at the board level, CEO with the HR director, come
So
on,
bad.
it's so
It's so
cliche, it's
bad.
awful, especially given, it wasn't. I mean, it's a little while before this happened, but a year and a bit ago, both of those folks were probably poring over papers, sitting at board meetings as they were laying off 10 to 20% of the staff. So you think, I wonder when this little affair started. Then,
Yeah.
being really rather cynical here, that good, fiduciary duty, good sort of stewardship. You're at the helm. You're leading a company. This is bloody ridiculous. Excuse my French. That the two of you would do something like that. I mean, crazy stuff, crazy stuff. But I don't know. I saw. This may have been generative AI actually, voice cloning over Chris Martin, the singer of Coldplay, saying that he was in on the act.
No.
No, I know no one believes it, but it was quite funny, inappropriate, but humorous,
Funny.
just for about
Well,
3 seconds. For
it
three
has
seconds,
it
yeah,
has amused a lot
yeah,
of people for a lot of time. So at least it
indeed,
provided entertainment. Yes.
indeed.
How?
But
I mean,
it's a sorry set of affairs. I think this is, yeah.
how on earth do they find time? I mean, I'm busy enough with my low-level, pointless job and my family
Your
and
job's not
stuff.
pointless. Come
Well,
on.
not completely pointless. No, it's the way I do it. Is a bit odd. And how do these people find time? They're sort of side executives, and as you were saying, hiring and firing, and then they've got time to. Anyway, despicable behaviour, and hilarious comeback. And well done, Gwyneth. I forgot actually because she's sort of annoying with her strangely scented candles. One forgets what a really good performer she was or is. A really fabulous actress. Anyway, whatever. So next we'll start with Maureen, and it's the team sheet that has been constructed. Why are you pointing? Why are you? Maureen's having something.
It's me. It's me.
Claire's going to kick off on this because
Oh
I will.
right. Oh, we've
I
changed.
will. I
Okay.
will. I
I'm sure
will.
yours. Yes.
I
No.
will. I will
Okay.
counter her wonderful remarks about the Zaslav. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now that sounds good. But I now understand what I thought it was a new podmoji, but it was actually said poking away like that means it's Claire's turn. So it's a good job we got video. So Claire is on. Right. So it's you to name the team sheet or to comment on the team sheet now that WBD have announced who's on it post split. Claire.
Yeah, actually, I mostly want to talk about the names because that just made me laugh even almost as much as Gwyneth Paltrow did. So Warner Brothers Discovery WBD, we've only just managed to find a way to say this without sounding like weapons of mass destruction. And do you know what they're separating? Do you know what the two new companies are going to be called, Oliver? Can
I
you
do not. I
guess?
can't wait. But hopefully they're silly because you've got a
Just
glint in your eye.
but guess just for the fun of it. Just for the
Just
fun of it.
guess.
So you got Warner Brothers Discovery.
Oh
What
no,
combination
really?
could it be?
It's Warner Brothers and Discovery, or is it Warner?
Yes,
Yes,
you
Oh,
yes, yes.
answered it.
Well done.
ridiculous! I bet someone got paid loads to do that as well. Loads
Oh,
of different
for sure,
ideas.
for
Let's
sure.
spitball some
So
ideas, guys. I tell you what, we have
Warner
to do.
Brothers. I mean, they could have gone with like Warner Global and Discovery Brothers or something like that,
They've
just to
gone
make
for
it a bit. Yeah,
Discovery Global. Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
Discovery
yeah.
Global. So
Oh,
Warner Brothers,
that's pretty good.
which is the bit that's got all the fun stuff, is going to be called Warner Brothers. And when I say all the fun things, I mean Warner Brothers Television, Motion Pictures, DC Studios, HBO Max. That's still Mr. Zaslav, and it's going to called Warner Brothers, and Discovery Global, which will have Discovery channels in it. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And CNN, I guess, TNT Sports in the US, and Bleacher Report. That's going to be run by the guy who is the current CFO, which is Gunnar Widenfeld, who I'm sure is a very capable guy, and hopefully doesn't go to Coldplay concerts. But yes, so after merging, Warner Brothers and Discovery will demerge essentially almost exactly along the same lines. And we have another two middle-aged white guys running them. So yay!
Yay for middle-aged white guys.
Yes, they win again. Well, we've lost one with the whole Coldplay thing, so we can't
overall,
let that happen.
+1.
We have to restart. So sorry, Podmoji. I don't know. I just think that's I have no words. Have you noticed as well when I listed the Warner Brothers assets that I said HBO and HBO Max, because now it's called HBO again and not Max anymore. This is just, it was, flashback. So Back to the Future, I guess, is my Podmoji, which I don't exactly. I'm in a DeLorean. Imagine a DeLorean. That's me.
On the BBC Light programme, which none of you will remember. But
my TARDIS. Yes.
Maureen.
Okay.
Did you know that the DeLoreans were made in the UK? And I didn't know that till
I
recently.
thought they were made in Ireland.
Sorry, forgive me. UK being Northern Ireland, which is Ulster. They were made in Ulster.
That's still
Sorry,
UK.
because I'm Irish and I'm in the sort of southern part. It was I just United Kingdom, so forgive me. But you're absolutely right to correct me on that. But in Northern Ireland, I didn't know that. So I was looking up some sort of interesting facts about DeLoreans and stuff. I don't know why. But anyway, I'll move on to absolutely. Now I will just be a little more gentle on the separation because usually we are highly opinionated and so on. Just to counter a little bit what Claire said, that I do believe that going back to Warner Brothers is steeped in history, 100 years.
Yeah, they're
plus.
a brilliant brand.
And I think
if they come up with another, if they'd taken all the vowels off or something, it would be worse.
Oh, like Aberdeen Building Society.
Warner Brothers.
Exactly. That's really good. Claire, that's really good.
Yeah. So really good. I guess we should be grateful for it.
I think it's
You're
good.
Right. You're absolutely right.
I think the name has real weight. So I think that's really good. I think this Discovery Global feels a bit more expansive, and it's sort of TV first because it will host all of the TV assets, and of course it's recognizable in international markets. So I think it makes sense.
It's also got brand value.
I agree. So I think it's good that they. Yeah, I mean, in terms of they haven't made up some other names. I think just clear separation, and now it's going to be, running the businesses separately. One is a bit more high risk, as we know, on the film side and TV side and OTT side, and the other is managing sort of legacy assets on the TV side as well. So let's see. I think the CFO now turned CEO, Gunnar, has got a bit of a big job that he will do, and I understand he's getting a pay rise, and I understand
I was worried there for a moment.
Zaslav exactly, he's getting a pay rise, and Zaslav apparently is taking a lower salary. Apparently, yes, apparently. Okay, but this is it's a big deal. I think it'll take them sort of year and a half, 2 years to really sort of, I think, formally do the split. So it's going to confuse the market for some time.
No, sorry, Claire, that's my job.
Popmoji. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
here it comes. Props.
Oh, props.
One is a little. One's a little penguin. One's a separation. Yep. But individually, very specific.
Very cute.
That's my point. Yeah, I'm very cute too.
Not at all convoluted. I like it. Well done. No. It's not as if you had them to hand and thought, oh, God, what am I going to do? Oh, two objects. I'll use those. Marvellous, though.
I have a hat and I've been looking at it for... Can I jump and get the hat? I know. But I couldn't reach out and get it. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Next time up closer to me.
I think it was a guy called Gunnar.
Yeah, it's Gunnar.
Gunnar. So the headlines are going to write themselves if he gets fired. But there we go.
Gunnar's a goner. Gunner's a goner, but not yet.
You've done it. You've done it.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, Oliver. Yeah.
No, I think we're there. Well, that was marvellous. Well, adding up the points, you got 7.5 for that first one. So it's 7.5 points. It's a draw. 7.5 points each this week. Well done.
No.
Congrats. Yeah.
Again?
Again? Another draw. That's amazing. Really? That's about 13 draws in a row. Yes, no.
We have to get those audited or something.
Yeah, no, that's my books are open, as is my heart. So on that bombshell, we have to close. We've slightly over time, but it's been worth it. I loved the deep dive and all I learned from it. Great news stories as well. Sorry about Colbert. I know you like him, Maureen. We will do similar stuff next time. Can't wait. In the meantime, bye-bye, Claire.
Bye, Oliver. Bye, Maureen. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, Maureen.
Bye-bye, everyone.
And bye-bye to you too. Until the next time, goodbye.